Priya has spent 40 minutes comparing 2 universities on her laptop. She has a spreadsheet. She has ranked the programs by graduate employment rate, by tuition fee, by global ranking, and by the number of industry partnerships listed on each website. By every metric she has constructed, University A wins. It is, on paper, the more rational choice. She closes the laptop, walks to the kitchen, makes tea, and texts her friend. "I think I'm going to apply to University B." Her friend asks why. Priya thinks for a moment, then types back, "I don't know, it just felt right." In another city, Priya's father is on the phone with his brother. He doesn't have a spreadsheet. He hasn't visited either university's website. What he has is a name, University A, that he's heard before. A colleague's son studied there. It turned out well. That, in his assessment, is sufficient evidence. He'll support whichever decision Priya makes, but he's already decided which one he's comfortable with. Neither Priya nor her father is behaving irrationally. They're behaving exactly as behavioral science predicts human beings behave when making complex, emotionally weighted decisions under uncertainty. They're using 2 different, but equally human, cognitive systems, and neither of those systems is the one that most university marketing is actually written for. This is the gap we're going to close today. If you watched the first episode in this series, this chapter builds directly on that foundation. If this is your first time here, that's fine too, this stands on its own. Either way, by the end of this video, you'll understand why a perfectly logical, data-rich program page can still lose to a competitor with weaker statistics and a better opening paragraph. A quick note before we begin. This video covers Chapter 2 of my book, The Science of Persuasive Copy. The book includes the complete sector breakdowns, additional before and after examples, and the implementation exercises that go with this chapter. Links to where you can get it are in the description. Now, let's get into the framework. In 1974, Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman published research that would eventually reshape economics, public policy, medicine, and, for our purposes, marketing. Their core insight was that human decision-making is not one single, unified, rational process. It operates through 2 distinct systems that run simultaneously, interact constantly, and produce decisions that neither system could reach on its own. Kahneman later named these 2 systems simply, System 1 and System 2. Understanding how both of them operate, and critically, how they interact in the specific context of a high-stakes enrollment decision, is the behavioral foundation of everything we'll cover in this series. Let's start with System 1. System 1 is fast, automatic, and emotional. It operates below conscious awareness. It's effortless and associative. It processes sensory information, pattern matches against prior experience, and generates emotional responses, all before conscious thought has had time to engage. It's the system responsible for first impressions, gut feelings, and that sense of rightness or wrongness that arrives before any rational analysis has even started. In the context of higher education, System 1 activates the moment a prospective student or parent encounters an institution's communication, the visual design of a landing page, the tone of a headline, the first sentence of an email. Before any data is processed, System 1 has already formed a judgment. Does this feel like a place I could trust? Does this feel like it's talking to me specifically? Does this feel right? System 1 responds to a specific set of signals. Visual hierarchy and aesthetic coherence, because a well-designed page signals competence before a single word is actually read. Emotional tone, because warmth, confidence, and empathy are felt before they're consciously identified. Social proof and familiarity, because a name that's been heard before, or a face that resembles someone trusted, carries weight that data alone doesn't. Narrative and specificity, because a story about a real person in a recognizable situation activates System 1 far more powerfully than any statistic could. and prestige cues, logos, accreditation marks, and rankings, which are processed as trust signals, not as information to be analyzed. Now let's look at System 2. System 2 is the system we believe is making our decisions. It's effortful, logical, and sequential. It evaluates evidence, compares options, applies criteria, and arrives at conclusions through conscious reasoning. It's genuinely slow, in neurological terms, and it's easily fatigued. Cognitive load, decision fatigue, and information overload all impair how well System 2 performs. In the context of higher education, System 2 is the system that reads the program curriculum. It evaluates the employment statistics. It compares tuition fees across institutions. It reviews visa pathway information. It weighs the relative merits of two universities across a spreadsheet, exactly like the one Priya built. It's the system that should, in theory, be making the enrollment decision. System 2 responds to specific outcome data, employment rates, salary ranges, employer partner names, accreditation details. It responds to logical structure, because a program page that clearly organizes information reduces cognitive load and supports System 2's processing. It responds to transparent comparisons, side-by-side data, clear fee structures, explicit visa guidance. It responds to evidence and verification, named alumni, published research, claims that can actually be checked. And it responds to process clarity, knowing exactly what happens after the enquiry is sent, what the application steps are, and what to expect at each stage. Here is the finding that has the most profound implication for everything we do in higher education copy. System 1 almost always forms the emotional judgment first. System 2 then constructs the rational justification for the conclusion System 1 has already reached. Priya didn't choose University B despite her spreadsheet. She chose it because of something her System 1 registered on the website, a tone, a photograph, a sentence that felt like it was written for her specifically, and her System 2 then worked backward to reconcile that feeling with the data in front of her. When the two couldn't be fully reconciled, System 1 won. It almost always does. Let me say that finding a different way, because it's worth sitting with. Most university marketing is written for System 2, the rational evaluator. But most enrollment decisions are actually made by System 1, the emotional pattern matcher. That gap, between who the copy is written for and who is actually making the decision, is the single biggest reason high-quality, accurate, data-rich institutional copy consistently underperforms. To be clear, this doesn't mean System 2 is irrelevant. It means the sequence matters enormously. System 1 has to be engaged first, trust established, emotional resonance created, a sense of rightness activated, before System 2 is even invited to evaluate the evidence. Copy that leads with data before it has established any emotional connection will be evaluated by a System 2 that is already working against a System 1 default it can't fully override. This brings us to the framework for this chapter. The Dual Process Copy Matrix. This is a planning tool that maps every major copy element in a higher education campaign against the system it's actually designed to engage, so that both systems get addressed, in the right sequence, through the right channels, with the right content, across a complete persuasion architecture. The matrix works across two axes. The vertical axis is the decision journey stage: awareness, consideration, and decision. The horizontal axis is the primary system being engaged at that stage, System 1 or System 2. Every piece of copy your institution produces should be placeable somewhere on this matrix, and if a category is sitting empty, that's a real gap in your persuasion architecture, not a minor oversight. Let's walk through each stage. At the awareness stage, System 1 has almost total dominance. The prospective student doesn't yet know enough about your institution to have formed any rational evaluation. System 2 simply has nothing to work with yet. System 1 is doing all of the work, alone. Awareness stage copy needs to be almost exclusively System 1 in its orientation. It has to generate emotional resonance, establish a sense of familiarity, and create the first impression that System 1 will carry forward into every subsequent evaluation that follows. And here's the part that surprises a lot of marketing teams. Awareness stage copy that leads with rankings, course content, or application requirements isn't just ineffective at this stage, it's actively harmful, because it depletes attention and creates a cognitive tone that feels institutional rather than human, right at the moment when human is exactly what's needed. So what should awareness stage copy actually prioritize? An emotional narrative, a student story, a transformation arc, a specific human outcome. Visual and tonal coherence, where the design and the voice together signal what kind of institution this actually is. A single, resonant message, not a list of features, but one clear statement of what this institution stands for. And social proof in human form, real faces, real names, brief testimonials that establish a sense of belonging before any data enters the conversation. Moving to the consideration stage, both systems are now engaged, and they need to be served simultaneously. The prospective student is actively evaluating. They're visiting program pages, comparing institutions, reading reviews, and starting to apply their own criteria. The most common copy error at this stage is a hard pivot, from a warm, emotional awareness campaign straight into a program page that reads like an academic catalog. System 1 has been engaged successfully at awareness. Then System 2 gets handed a flat data sheet, and the emotional connection that was just built quietly evaporates. Consideration stage copy has to maintain the emotional register established at awareness, while layering in the specific, verifiable evidence that System 2 actually requires. Practically, this means program pages that open with outcome narrative before they list module content. It means FAQs that answer the fear behind the question before they provide the technical answer to the question itself. It means social proof that's specific enough to function as real evidence, not just as a generic endorsement. A strong example. Not 91% of our graduates were employed within 6 months, full stop, but 91% of our graduates were employed within 6 months, including Maya, who joined the Asian Development Bank's infrastructure team. Same statistic. Completely different psychological weight. Then comes the decision stage. Here, System 2 is doing its most intensive work, verifying, checking, rereading, comparing line by line. But System 1 hasn't left the room. It's still present, performing a different function now. It's looking for permission. It's quietly asking, can I trust this? Does this still feel like the right choice? Is there anything here that makes me uncomfortable? Decision stage copy has to provide everything System 2 needs to complete its verification, while making absolutely sure that nothing introduces a System 1 doubt at the worst possible moment. Ambiguous language, unclear processes, missing information, generic reassurance, all of these activate System 1 doubt right when a prospective student is closest to committing. So decision stage copy should prioritize complete, specific, unambiguous information. Fees, deadlines, requirements, visa processes, all stated plainly. Risk reversal, scholarship guarantees, deposit protection, deferral policies. Direct, personal contact, a named admissions officer, not a generic enquiry form that disappears into a queue. And finally, a kind of emotional confirmation, copy that says, in effect, you have made the right choice. Now, this framework doesn't apply identically across every audience, and this is where a lot of institutions lose ground without realizing it. For domestic undergraduate applicants, school leavers applying through structured national systems, the awareness to decision journey often spans many months. System 1 forms its initial impressions from open days, word of mouth, and social media, long before System 2 ever begins its analysis. This means System 1 investment at the awareness stage has a genuinely long payoff horizon, and those early impressions are highly resistant to being revised later by System 2, no matter how good the data eventually looks. International postgraduate applicants present a more complex picture. They typically bring stronger System 2 analytical frameworks to the decision, more experience, clearer career goals, more precise return on investment calculations. But their System 1 risk sensitivity is also higher, because the consequences of a wrong decision are greater, the social and family stakes are higher, and the unfamiliarity of a foreign environment activates System 1's threat detection more acutely. The implication: copy for this audience has to demonstrate System 2 competence, specificity, evidence, outcome clarity, while simultaneously providing intensive System 1 reassurance. A program page with excellent employment statistics, sitting on a website that feels impersonal or culturally unaware, will not convert at the rate the data alone suggests it should. Parent audiences, particularly in high-influence cultures across South Asia, East Asia, the Middle East, and Sub-Saharan Africa, operate with a System 1 profile dominated by safety, prestige recognition, and social proof drawn from their own reference networks. Their System 2 focuses intensely on financial risk and post-graduation security. And critically, they are rarely persuaded by the same copy that persuades the student. Institutional copy that speaks only to the student audience systematically underperforms wherever the parent has real influence over the final decision. And mature, career-changing applicants often show an inverted sequence entirely. Their System 2 analysis tends to come first. They've usually already done the rational calculus before encountering any institutional copy at all. What they're actually looking for is System 1 permission, an emotional signal that this institution understands where they are in their lives, that they won't feel out of place, and that this decision is one they won't come to regret. Let's make all of this concrete with one direct comparison. Take a typical opening for an MSc Data Science program page, aimed at career changers. The common version reads, "Our MSc in Data Science provides students with advanced technical skills in machine learning, statistical analysis, and programming languages including Python and R." Delivered by internationally recognized research faculty, this program prepares graduates for roles in data science, analytics, and artificial intelligence across global industries. It's accurate. It's well organized. It's also speaking entirely to System 2, and offering System 1 absolutely nothing to hold on to. Now compare it to this. You've spent the last few years watching data science reshape your industry from the outside. You've done the reading. You know what the roles look like. What you don't yet have is the credential and the technical depth that would move you from interested to qualified. Our MSc in Data Science was built specifically for professionals making that move. 63% of our intake comes from non-technical backgrounds. Our graduates have gone on to roles at Google, the NHS Digital Team, and Goldman Sachs's Quantitative Analytics Division. Here's what that transition actually looks like in practice. Same program. Same faculty. Same outcomes data. But the second version opens by naming the reader's exact situation with real precision. That's System 1 recognition, then acknowledges the specific gap they're trying to close, System 1 resonance, before it ever hands over a single statistic. By the time the data arrives, System 1 has already leaned in, and System 2 is reading that data as confirmation, not as a cold pitch. If this framework is starting to reframe how you look at your own institution's website, that's exactly the point of this series, and it's worth subscribing now, because every following chapter builds directly on the two we've covered so far. Let's bring this together. Higher education copy fails most often not because it's poorly written, but because it's written for the wrong system, or for the right system at the wrong stage of the journey. System 1 decides. System 2 justifies. And the institutions that consistently outperform are not the ones with the best data. They're the ones that understand exactly when to lead with feeling, and exactly when to follow with proof. In the next chapter, we'll move into the voice of customer research methodology that actually produces the language, the insights, and the evidence you need to build System 1 resonance that isn't just emotionally compelling, but genuinely, verifiably true. If you'd like the complete version of this chapter, including the full sector breakdowns for parent audiences and mature applicants, additional before and after rewrites, and the 2 implementation exercises that go with it, the book this series is based on, The Science of Persuasive Copy, is linked in the description below. It's available on Barnes & Noble, on Everand, and through Thalia. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Description box captions. Paste below the video. Book. Get the full book. The Science of Persuasive Copy. By Mujahid Baber. This video covers Chapter 2, Dual Process Theory Applied to Higher Education. The full chapter includes additional sector breakdowns, before and after rewrites, and practical exercises not covered in this video.